Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Blend Radio's first Friday Toast of the Arts and Parks show with the National Parks Arts Foundation. We've been doing this show for quite a few years and we love it. They do this amazing program where they host artists for a full month in an artist residency program within a national park or in lodgings at a national park or a park unit. One of them famously being the Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park. There's dry tortugas off in Florida, in the Florida Keys, on their own island. Like as an artist, you actually have to have someone go with you because you're off-grid on Loggerhead Key for a month. I mean, there's sea turtles, there's ocean. It's amazing. Hawai'i Volcanoes has been really, really popular because there's what's called the art house, but also you get to see how the landscape changes. And every artist, musician, writer, everyone that's been on our show over the years talks about Hawai'i Volcanoes as they are intrigued. They actually go back. They apply to go back because of the actual change of scenery, because of the lava. And what is the land doing? What are the people about? It's been really fascinating. So I encourage you to go to the website, nationalparksartsfoundation.org. And today we get to welcome back Tanya Ortega. She is the founder of the National Parks Arts Foundation. And also we have Elizabeth Fiend. She is the, she's the CEO for the Friends of the Volcanoes National Park, Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park. I'll get this straight. President and CEO. So she was on our show. We were trying to figure it back quite a few, how many years ago? Elizabeth, how long has it been since you were on the show? You said 2017?
I think about eight years ago, maybe 7 years ago.
Wow. That's amazing. So this show's been going for quite a while then. Tanya, welcome back.
It's great to hear you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, this is so cool. Everyone, so nationalparksartsfoundation.org is the website. And then for the Friends of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, go to fhvnp.org. So I just want to touch on base with you, Elizabeth, before we get into NPAF and how you guys all work together. Tell us a little bit about why we have friends groups for national parks, because this is something I think a lot of us are park travelers, maybe go to a park for the first time, but we don't understand why we need to have now a friends association on top of the park itself.
Well, thank you again for having me on, Lisa. This is fun. Having a friends group, a philanthropic partner to a national park is like having a next door neighbor that looks out for you, looks out for your house, looks out for your animals, looks out for you. And one of the things with national parks is they can't do it all by themselves. Governmental bodies have a finite amount of budget and a lot of things need to be done in a national park, and a friends group can come in and support things like artists in residence and youth programs and restoring trails and art and buildings. And we are more critical now, probably than ever, in this the climate we're in right now. It's super important to have a friends group to support the national parks. And there's a group of the National Park Foundation is the official philanthropic partner to the National Park Service.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we are the official philanthropic partner to Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, along with probably there's 250 very active friends groups that support national parks, along with many others that maybe we don't even know about.
And it's really important, we do a lot with Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks and Sequoia National Forest and the Giant Sequoia National Monument. And we've worked with the Sequoia Parks Conservancy, and the Sequoia region has gone through literal hell over the last 5 years between wildfires and now recently flooding. Yet at the same time, the land itself is healing, right? But for humans and humans wanting to go to the park, it's hard. But through the fires, which are not normal wildfires. Things like signs and the roads are melted. The signs are, Crystal Cave has been closed. They thought they were going to open it, then another fire, and then this. But it was these friends groups that are the ones really, while, the governmental side is out there going, okay, we need to do this, but it's actually taking the community and all these groups coming together to assess the damage. But it seems like it lands on the friends groups like what you do when a negative thing happens to stand up and go, okay, well, you need new signs. And we've interviewed retired park superintendents who have even talked about at times where they had to make their own signs way back when, in the 70s and 80s, because of funding and stuff like that. So is that kind of the thing that happens for you? Like if something happens, like, a volcano decides to say,
Well,
hey, I'm here, that you can help with those kind of projects?
oh, most definitely. As you know, we had the huge 2018 eruption. We've had, the recent Mauna Loa eruption, with the Kilauea eruption, government shutdowns. Our organization kept the park open when we had I think it was a 31-day shutdown. Fact check that. I'm not sure exactly how many days. We raised the money to keep the park open. Same thing. Maybe we don't have a wildfire, but when you have a volcano that literally, in earthquakes that change the entire landscape, flow over roads, destroy different parts of the park, we have destruction and creation happening at the same time. The Park Service needs help. And it's obviously not just the Friends group, it is a community effort, but we specifically are there for those type of events. We're going to do whatever we can to help keep the park whole and take care of all the beings within the park, the landscape itself, and the humans that inhabit the park as well. So it's a big job, and we have not had a non-natural disaster in a long time. I think we keep talking about, we'd love to have maybe 2 years strung together where there wasn't a natural disaster or a government shutdown or COVID or whatever it may be. We're at the ready. So we've learned how to just be a supportive partner and be flexible.
Oh, flexibility is key to everything. That's key to travel.
It really
it's key.
key.
It's key. That is a key to life. If you're not flexible, you will break, my friends. You will break. The willow thing is true. You've got to bend like the willow. You got to bend like the tree. You got to bend with the wind. You cannot be non-flexible. It doesn't work. Brushes work by being flexible. And that leads me to Tanya with the National Parks Arts Foundation. I think, talking about supporting parks, I think NPAF does such a huge job in bringing artists into parks and we'll talk about what the amazing things you do for artists. But one of the key things I think about artists going into parks, whether you work with everyone from writers and poets to textile artists to painters, filmmakers, photographers, I mean, everything, right?
Yes.
It's about art, which is huge. But these artists get to see behind the scenes, right? Which is an unheard of thing, and unless you're in a special program like this. But they are able to bring these things to the public, because not everyone, it's like we have wilderness areas. When the Wilderness Act happened, that was important. We, only a few people get to go out into the actual wilderness area of national parks once they have a permit, and only so many people because of the land and the cultural places too. And NPAF, through the artists, you're able to do events, exhibitions, and their art transcends, and even just through one, I mean, you can never actually capture how much art goes out in the world, like how far it goes, that ripple effect of art.
It's not directed at any certain group of people. You can enjoy art and even understand it if you're a child, a toddler, older, any groups can look at art and understand it. And what it is it's another way, excuse me, it's another way to interpret and to give the public a way to interpret the park and the park resources. So it's, you can't even count that. I mean, you can't even measure it. It's so huge. So
It's
thank you for bringing
impactful.
that up. Yeah.
Well, that's what I think is so important about NPAF, the programs. And I know you also go beyond national parks, right?
Yes.
And monuments, and you'll work with state parks even, but this is this benefit. What about, Tanya, for people who never, who could be maybe, on retirement age and in a different country and do not have the money to go to Hawaii, right? Or to Volcanoes National Park, right? They don't have the funds or the time left in life, but a piece of art or maybe a film or something that one of the artists have done, or you've even have character artists, which is something unusual that we don't want to lose that art form. Thank you for keeping that alive in what you do. I think there's something in that too, that people that don't get to go to the park get to experience the park through the art, and in that way too, the park has a gentler light, like a lighter foot on it in regards
Yes.
to the amount of people.
Yes, I mean, that's really important, and you can be inspired by the artwork. It doesn't matter where you are, and look at it. And that is in fact why the National Park Service was created, because Moran, that I've told the story
Thomas
before,
Moran
painted small watercolors in a notebook and was able to show it to Congress, and they could understand the importance of place because of that. And so, yes, taking the parks out of the parks to show the public is important on a few different levels. And you mentioned that the artists and different people get to see the behind the scenes things of the park, and that is only a few people can do that, because our artists meet with the Park Service, are trained to be able to do that. For instance, here at different lava tubes and different, we can't have a footprint on different things, and then especially dry tortugas with the tortugas, you have to be trained to be able to see that. So the behind the scenes is very important, because even if you can come to a park, you're able to come to a park, you can't understand that, and artists are able to understand that and get trained by specialists how to tread lightly, what not to touch, all of those very important things. So even people who can come see, Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, artists are able to bring the parts of the park to them that they don't necessarily have everyday access to.
Oh, it's
But
like us as travel writers, we get to go places that we get to go in the back kitchen of a restaurant. And I'm sorry, to me, I want to be in the back kitchen more than the front. That's just me, because they're playing music and then we get to hear the real life, of the restaurant. And you can see what's clean and not, right? So I want in the back of the kitchen. That's why I do what we do, just for that.
yeah,
Because,
but also in that
yeah.
analogy, you're preserving the health of the food, the people who are the specialists that know how to treat the food and keep it clean and present it in a wonderful, they're all trained in the kitchen. They're trained for that. So you have to be trained to go to the kitchen to be able to give the goodness to the public. So that's a pretty good analogy, actually.
It is what it is. To me, like we talk about this all the time. Like, I could never be normal. Like, I just can't. Like, I want in the kitchen. Like, I cannot go to a restaurant without wanting to go in the kitchen. I can't. And I think that's the same for the artists and what you guys all do. And it's, to me, it's this. We want to know more, and we want to bring it to the masses, because if the masses go to those special places, it will get destroyed, because we can't. These special tiny places or protected things cannot handle mass quantities of people. And I think that's what's so beautiful with that. And Elizabeth, what would you say on that in regards to that balance? I mean, that's why parks do have these special events too. So it's not like the public doesn't get to see everything all the time. There are special events and things and ranger programs, but Wouldn't you say that this is this kind of balance that we need now in protection for our parks?
Oh, most definitely. In fact, in 2013, we partnered with NPAF as a critical and important part of our mission. So we recognized that the Artist in Residence program touched on a much deeper level. And one of the things that we envision is that we give visitors a profound connection to this unique physical and spiritual beauty of the island of Hawaii. So for us, it was a no-brainer. Like NPAF, we the minute we knew we could partner with them, we realized that this was something that we could share and be a part of. And I have to just say personally, from a feather worker to a painter to a comedian to musicians to, it has been, not only is it exciting, but the ripple effect goes much deeper than just when that artist is there. And I know Tanya mentioned that it's there. We don't know how far reaching it is. It's continuous. So the world becomes much bigger when you have a program like this, that we consider it, we're 10 years strong now with NPAF, and we consider it
that's awesome.
Very critical part of our mission to include art, because that's something that we can all experience the park in many different ways without actually being here.
Well, going to Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, it's cultural and it's geological, it's natural. So it's got all of those facets that most national parks have, right? It's like that diverse collection of something that really needs to be protected and interpreted. And so I think the artists become this other hand of interpretation. But I also see this as something a little different than maybe Yosemite. Yosemite, well, no, because we still have the indigenous people of the area too, and Chaco, like, Tanya, you know that area, the back of your hand. But I think Hawaii is different, and we have not been there yet. So I'm only talking through all the interviews we've done over the years with NPAF travel writers and authors before too. I know a couple of authors that very talk about the cultural history, and obviously Hawaii is going through changes too, and has been through a lot of changes, and so it's an interesting time frame right now. And what I wanted to touch on is, for us going to Hawaii, even though it's part of the American statehood, right, where it's part of the 50 states, that there's still like a section of us Americans off the mainland going there that need to kind of understand that this is more than a tropical drink with a little umbrella. Like, can we get past this? Can we kind of get past this kind of TV comedy? Like, I love my, comedy movies, as you girls know, but it's a little bit more than that. And I think that's kind of where I'm going through with both of your organizations, is that you're bringing us back to, you need to understand the real Hawaii. And I'm not even pronouncing it correctly. I know, I'm sorry. Until I get there, I know I'll do it right. But it is understanding the landscape, the nature, having some respect for the culture, having respect for all of it. And I think we need to kind of understand that a little bit beforehand. And I think that's where the arts play the role. And then when people get there, they start to understand more. So you want to take that first, Tanya, about that kind of understanding that I think artists bring out before people even go, and even give that respect to for the people there now, the locals, that the artist brings some pride.
Very important.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does.
So,
it makes sense in that kind of an accessibility. Good
word. Yeah.
So these volcanoes are very sacred to many people here. Hawaiians, obviously, very sacred. And what's interesting, and I sort of have a conflict with it a little bit, is it is a lot of times sort of couched in this, oh, we're inviting, Hawaiians back to, like people are inviting them back to these places that have always been theirs in a sacred way that most people don't understand. So it is incredibly important to have that sense of place, where you're going. So the artists that come, we ask various specialists to do kind of an introduction to them to ensure before they come, actually, to make sure that they know that they're, and I hate to say treading on sacred land, but there has to be a form of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And
There is a respect. Yeah.
And to think about it in the way that has been, oh, we're inviting that, it's not an invitation. It's already sacred and has been far back in history that we don't even know. So, yeah, it really touches my heart. You can probably hear my voice wavering to think about those things, but that's true about a lot of these places. And it's not just true for First Peoples, but a lot of, I mean, for Gettysburg, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Affected so many people. So you have to have that understanding going in. Yeah, I apologize if I'm getting a little
well, I know, because
but it really strikes me.
well, it's really, I mean, that's the thing when you go to these parks and you really get involved in it and you do stories, and it's and I think there are a lot of people, park travelers, will go back and go back and go back to similar parks, go down rabbit holes of history and nature and biodiversity and cultural diversity and all of these stories that these parks tell. And if we don't preserve them, then we lose these stories, right? We lose like one species of, one butterfly can kill off this if we don't have the butterfly anymore, or this plant will kill off that butterfly, all of that web of life, right? And parks teach us that, and we teach kids, and I think parks really have a thing with kids, and I think the arts have a good way of reaching out to the youth more than anything, quite frankly. But it's interesting when you talk about like Chaco and Gettysburg. I think I texted you while we were in Gettysburg because Nancy and I lost it. Like, it was so overwhelming in emotion.
Yeah, you
and
did.
We had to go to we were like, that's it. And it was during that, like, it was like the first weekend that people were allowed out of the pandemic lockdown, and people were walking over gravesite. Like, we were like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? Like, this, no. We saw the Klingel house, and we couldn't go knock on the door because someone was there. But you know what I mean? We went to say, give me some peach pie. And I know you have a ghost in there. But we did go, we went into the, and everyone, this is from past interviews with artists and residents there, but we ended up in the picnic area watching these, filming woodpeckers, because we just needed to breathe. It was so heavy. Those places, this history is so heavy. And I hope, like, people, when they go to places like this, and that's why we're preserving them. And even Thomas Moran was there, right? He did Civil War art. I didn't know that until a few days ago, that he was a Civil War artist too. He was we need to do a whole show on him at some point about what he has done. But the feeling of these places and how connected they are, like the ripple effect of genealogy. When we were in Gettysburg, there were people calling people, talking about their families that were related to people that fought in Gettysburg. So that was part of the other, like, historical feeling was, oh my gosh, people are connecting with their great grandparents and grandparents over people that fought in Gettysburg, and they were looking up their family history there and now. And then I think of places like Hawaii and how much it's gone through. Hawaii, like all the different islands and the history that it's gone through. And then here it is, Hawaii volcanoes. Like it's big, and I haven't been there, but I feel it, man. And I haven't even been there, but it's Tanya's fault that I feel all that because of all the artists sharing some shows with us. But Elizabeth, you want to chime in on this because I'm just carrying on and on because I just feel like what Tanya feels like. I think that there is something really powerful with these parks about human history that we can't eradicate. We need to keep alive, but it's also nature and all of that.
Well, the cultural component that is part of this, the special sauce that makes a park, the secret sauce, the cultural component I kind of believe that all national parks are on indigenous lands. That's just a personal opinion. And I look at,
I think the whole country is
right.
So,
and all of our 400 and some odd national parks and monuments. But you look at Hawai'i Volcanoes and a sister park up the coast, Pu'uhonua Ohonaunau National Historical Park, and you see the culture, the art, and the youth. Those combinations are super important. So we look at the artists in residence along with our youth programs and along with supporting the culture. That is just as important as protecting the rare and endangered plants and endangered species. So it is all part of the mix. And I think people come to Hawaii with maybe a Hollywood version of what
that's
Hawaii
what I was talking about, the little umbrella.
Yeah.
That umbrella drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you come with it, and I think probably the best way to arrive, at least to our island, is to be open-minded and respectful. Pono, being respectful, looking at doing the right thing. And we don't know it. A visitor is not going to know it, automatically when they arrive on the island. But I think that through artists, through youth programs, through cultural programs, we can teach that. And yes, we're not inviting the Hawaiians back. The Hawaiians are here. This is their land, and we share it, and they share it. And I know that the looking at it from all those lenses is really important. And so we feel blessed to be here, and to hear someone like you say you've never been here, but you feel the spiritual significance or the cultural significance. It's powerful. Pele is powerful. You realize that we're a place that's creating and destroying land at the same time.
Yeah, it's always changing.
That is an ever-changing landscape with a peoples that the people that are here are very dynamic too. And you can't come to Hawaii Island without spending some time here to really feel. So that's why people keep coming back. Your first visit, you'll learn something, and by your 10th visit, you're like, wow, I didn't know that. I've been here 30 years and I learned something new all the time.
I think there's also an extra thing because your islands that people really realize. I mean, I know we do a lot with like the islands out in Washington State, that it is like you're such a smaller goldfish bowl versus the big goldfish bowl of mainland. And the mainland, that goldfish bowl tends to get cloudy, but people don't see it because they can dodge the cloud over here and ignore the cloud. You know what I mean? Whereas when you're in a smaller island, I mean, because we're all islands. I don't care. North America's a big island, right?
Exactly.
But like when we're yeah. I mean, if you look at it all, we're all floating around on islands, some just have a bigger island, and then some parts break off at some point and whatever. And then when you realize you only got this small piece of island, you better protect it. And so that's another thing too.
Our island, Hawaii Island, and our park specifically, the Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, is almost the size of the entire island of Oahu. So we are a significantly large island with a small population. So you have a landmass that's large with, I don't know, 100,000 year-round residents. So you figure if we're having 2 million visitors a year come,
Wow.
that's a significant amount of people that don't live here, and we want to share it in the best way we can, culturally, artistically, in every way we can. So yeah, we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so
You're floating.
we're floating, as is everybody else. I like that you use that. Yeah, North America is an island. We are no more unique than any other island in that we care for a lot of things: culture, land, youth, elders, you name it.
I think it's the same as being in a small town. You kind of know each other, and you, when things get too big, you lose track. And that's the thing, right? And I mean, you see it with giant corporations. They lose track of stuff all the time, and we don't even have someone to call anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you're off on that island. I don't care. It's like that's kind of it. And I think when you're on an island, everything is very up close and real.
Well, the excuse me, the Friends of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is the entity that is able to bridge a lot of that. I want to say all of it for the parks, and other friends groups do this too at other national parks, but the opportunity that we have to work with the friends group, and therefore the public working with the friends group, to bridge all of those things is just incredible at doing that and bringing it to the people.
Wow.
We can't say enough about it, because if we didn't have that bridge, that connection, there would be far less understanding for the sacredness of the parks, and everything from these artist programs to endemic species to everything they do for the parks. This is what the Friends group does. And it's just incredible. It's all that they do for the public. I can't even start. I mean, Elizabeth, how many different programs do you have going in the park? Like over 200? I don't even know, but it's amazing.
We do. I mean, if you named a few, it would be, volunteer restoration, all of our Guardians of the Trail youth program, youth rangers, Hawaiian Cultural Festival, the BioBlitz, Artists in Residence, After Dark in the Park, Ike Hana no Iao, Na Leu Manu. But the beauty of that is we don't do it on our own. We work with partners like NPAF. I mean, here we have a mutual admiration society going on here, because
it's a good, but that's important. But that just shows people how to work together, right? And that's how big things happen. It's not by doing it on your own. Nothing moves on your own, period.
Absolutely not. And if you do it from the community base and go from bottom up, amazing things happen. And I think we have that opportunity in any community you are in. If you have an opportunity to work with the people in that community, and then you're able to share it out to others, we can't go anywhere but up. We win. This is something that's so special, and I get a little teary when we get to this place of this means the world to me.
What would you each say that people should know about Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park? I mean, this is something and before you answer that, I have one question that I wanted to go back to with Tanya.
Yes.
You talked about the fact of this ever-changing presence of nature destroying and then creating, right? All the time, which it does actually. If you watch any animal species it does. That is it, right? That is, nature does this. But it's doing it on this different level for humans to take in, like, holy crap, look at that. This stuff is going down. It's scary, but it's beautiful at the same time. So there's this part of art, and I want to go back to both of you on something people should understand about the park. But Tanya, I want to go to you about artists and that creating, destroying, and creating. Like Jimi Hendrix set his guitar on fire, right? And that was his manager prompted him to do it. But then it became this thing, and people do this. There's temporary art, public art exhibits all the time. I think one of the first ones I saw was in Santa Fe, with a giant polar bear in Santa Fe Railroad Park, Rail Yard Park, I think it is.
The rail yard.
And they had this guy had made this huge polar bear. And of course, it was about climate change, so it was temporary. And that, of course, makes perfect sense. But artists create, and I was reading about this, and we were doing it, Ted DeGrazia, the artist, right? And how he burned his art to evade taxes and stuff, which is one thing, but you still burned your art. And artists do this. There's like so many stories of artists destroying their art, which is kind of like nature in a weird way. What do you think about that? Do you think that kind of connects with some of the artists that come and do the residency of that kind of fascination of creating life and then destroying it and then creating it again is the same thing that artists go through too?
Well, I would hope so, because then that means that the artists are being critical to themselves. So in a good way. I don't mean like this is horrible, I'm going to destroy it, but they're able
Growth.
to both a deeper meaning inside themselves and how it relates to their surroundings. So again, a sense of place. And when we were talking about being flexible, that is one of the things that I would hope that it's ever changing. We're only here for a certain amount of time in our lives. So is the art, and the earth does the same thing. But if you're really interested in this subject and how specifically volcanoes affect people and sort of this inner dialogue that artists have with themselves while they're in a place and being being touched or influenced by this with volcanoes. Werner Herzog made a great film called Into the Inferno. And so with his films, and I'm kind of passing the buck a little bit and saying, hey, watch this film, but it speaks to not just artists, but just the public and how that affects the internal change that we have when we're looking at the resources of a park that might have something like a volcano. So yes, I believe in that. And I would hope that people would recognize that about the place that they're in and internally, because it's especially here at Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park, part of what you have to think about. It's part of the beauty, but it's just the destructive beauty. And then that goes into the legacy of the of Pele here. So that's very interesting. Yes,
I'll
love
touch on that. Please
but
tell,
I can talk about this
for those
forever.
for those who have not been there and don't know who Pele is. Please share the legacy. One of you tell people, because we've touched on it. But for those who are listening that have no clue, which I didn't know until I read, actually, I think it was Linda Ballou wrote about it in her book, one of the travel writers, and she wrote about this, and it became this, wow, what a story. Yeah. Can either, Tanya, do you want to just share that legacy a little bit for people, or do you want to do it, Elizabeth?
I'm definitely not a specialist on Pele or anybody else, but Pele is a goddess that travels throughout the islands and appearing to people as a young woman or an old woman. Sometimes she has a white dog with her. So she makes her home at Halemaumau Crater. Am I pronouncing that right, Elizabeth?
It can be either Halemaumau or Halemaumau. There's different ways to say it depending. So you didn't do it wrong.
Yeah, please excuse how I pronounce things. I'm not a linguist by any means. So her full name, she's also known as Pele Hanumea, which interpreted is she who shapes the land. So she's the goddess of fire and continues to be part of the history and the legacy of the island. There's just so much. Elizabeth, do you want to?
And again, I am certainly not an expert in Olelo and the Hawaiian language, but Pele is renowned for being passionate and fiery, and she's one of 6 daughters and 7 sons, born to, I think it's Haumea, I never say it right, and Kane, so there's a lot of amazing stories about Pele. I think I'm going to just touch back, Lisa, to what you said, or what you asked. Upon arrival, I would say if you land on our island, you arrive, you need to breathe, listen, observe, obviously respect. And there are painful things about what happens around here as well. So I just think, again, breathe, listen, observe, breathe, listen, observe. And you will find that you will end up doing the right thing if you breathe, listen, and observe.
Oh, that's pure advice for any traveler, right?
That's
right.
Beautiful, Elizabeth.
That is perfect. That is
true.
perfect. I think that is, because I think sometimes we just jump to a conclusion so fast, and let me just say jump to opinion instead of conclusion. It's just jump to opinion. Seems to be a national hobby. Really, the breathing part, that comes back to art. The arts are what help us breathe. Nature is what helps us breathe and stop. And I think that's the beauty of what the two of you have done with both of your nonprofits and working together. You're also showing that is important, and supporting a park. So I'm going to go to both of you. Elizabeth, let's go to Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park. What is something people should know about that park that you think is so special that they should know about?
That's a loaded question. There's
I
too
know,
many
just like
things.
pick one bird. Here's a berry. I don't know. You know what I mean? That sounds so flippant, and I don't mean it that
I'll
way.
say, because on our logo we have the Iiwi bird, and we have the lehua blossom with the ohia tree, and very significant to me when you walk in and you stop and you listen and you breathe and you observe. There are birds, and remember that Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park is in a rainforest. And so be prepared for 11 microclimates.
Holy cow.
That's I think, and again, I think we have 11 out of the 13 on our island. Is that correct, Tanya?
That's a
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
Right. So from mountain to ocean, from Mauka to Makai, right? We've got the park actually goes from, the top of Mauna Loa to the ocean, to the sea arch at the from up to down, from down to up. So everything in between. So I think just be prepared for this international biosphere, this World Heritage Site. It's not something you can do in 4 hours.
Yeah, don't do the drive-through. Like if you're
Don't
gonna go
do
to
it in 4 hours.
Yeah, don't do the drive-through. And it's a dark sky park, right? Too. So that's another huge thing. I always
Yes, it
think
is.
we were. I don't know. Was it Jim Schlatt that was on the show last time talking about this? The photographer, and we were talking about like look up, and like we forget. Like we always look where you're walking, look down in case of a snake or something, and hiking and parks. Tanya knows about snakes. She says get boots. And her boots in Chaco, when I learned about what she meant about boots, she meant real boots. I mean, real snake boots. Like she wants you to wade, Yeah, when next time I go to the swamp, I'm going with you on that one. But it's look up, and then we really forget about our parks at night. I mean, that's to me life. I mean, when we lived in Africa, man, Kenya, we'd go out on night drives and you would see so much more than what you would see during the day because it was hunting time.
Wow.
And you would see bugs, you would see, I mean, everybody's up. I mean, we used to do experiments in our hallway when we lived in Kenya. Nancy would sit there and turn off. We'd go in our rooms and we'd leave the hall light on, and she would close the door and like, here's the hall light on. And we'd get up at 3 a.m. for the hall light inspection. And I swear to God, we had every bug on the planet, walking, praying mantis, walking stick things, scorpions, everything. But then we also had a bunch of snakes in the house too, but we won't talk about that. But like, honest to God, like we forget about what happens at night. And parks that have special programs at times or allow you to actually see the stars. Can you see the stars compared to LA? I bet you can.
Oh, I
Oh,
was just going to
wow.
share quickly. I had Japanese exchange students through my son's school, and they come from Tokyo, and you can't see the stars in Tokyo. You don't go outside and look up and see the stars. In Hawai'i Volcanoes, it's open 24 hours a day, 7
Oh,
days a week.
wow. Really?
So the park is open all the time. Of course, when there's an eruption, pretty spectacular at night. But when there isn't an eruption, pretty spectacular at night.
Mm. Not all parks are open at night, by the way. I just want to let people know because we learned the hard way. Painted Forest National Park is one of them that are it's not. You may find yourself camping outside the gate at night, looking up at the stars and seeing a full moon, though. It was cool. It was a cool night. But it just wasn't open. And you should look at the park websites before you go to the park. I'm just going to say that. But it is interesting talking with both of you because it always does seem like Hawaii is like this foreign planet to the mainland, yet it's not. Once people go, it's like part of America, right? Oh, we'll just fly from New York. We'll fly from LA. No big deal. But it's interesting because it is like a foreign place in a way, right? Wouldn't you say, Tanya? It is like a different country.
Yes, I exactly. And speaking of nighttime at national parks or whatever parks, the Friends of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park sponsor and support the After Dark in the Park program here.
See,
So
look, Elizabeth, she's doing your job for you.
it's amazing. It is amazing how much how this affects visitors. But I have to answer your question about what I feel like people should know or how they should think or whatever when they come. And I think a way to appreciate what is around you starts off with being grateful. I know that sounds a little strange, like, oh, you must be grateful for this, but I feel like, and this is what happened to me when I first came, and this is ashamedly, I was like, oh, okay, I want this and this. It was all about what I already felt, the ideas I had of the park, the ideas I had of Hawaii, and I shouldn't have even stepped foot in Hawaii thinking like that. I wasn't looking around me, being here and thinking, wow, I really need to be grateful to the legacy of this land, to just everything that is surrounding me. So that's my answer. It's a little bit pushy, but I think
I think you're dead on.
In being grateful, we actually sort of get more of an appreciation. It's a place to start understanding, and it's very hard for me to be grateful. I dismiss things all of the time. But when you hit that point to just look around and be grateful for what is surrounding you instead of bringing your own ideas into something, it opens up such a wonderful part of the legacy of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park.
I think that's just good life advice. And I think this is what national parks bring back to people. We get boxed up in our lives, our crazy lives.
Yeah, we get
And
boxed up in what we think things should be, and we're just a
right,
tiny little person.
right. And when you go to a park, I always talk about humility, and it is. A park will make you feel humble. And I'm not trying to make you feel small or whatever people say these days. I don't know. It just is about realizing that we are one little teeny piece of this giant web, but we're also an important piece of that giant web. And so at the beginning, like when I see someone see a sequoia tree, like God, whenever you drive into Sequoia National Park, here comes the person that slams on the brake when they see a giant sequoia tree. And we're like, oh, come on, you've seen one. No, then like our park ranger friend Dana, she goes, Nancy, Lisa, it's called they're in awe. And we had to learn park ranger etiquette. We've been taught. We've been taught. And I want to say park rangers are probably the most gracious people you'll ever meet on the planet, who I don't know how they handle the amount of public people that they do, but they do. Um, it is amazing what they do. And when you go to a park though, there are just things that you do the jaw drop. They stop you in your tracks. And I think we need that jolt as a society. And it has to be balanced out. That's where the arts come in. That's where programs like what you're doing, Elizabeth, with the Friends of Volcanoes, Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park. I think these programs that are smaller, intimate, are more important than someone just doing the Crater Rim Drive, right?
Oh, most definitely. And again, like these are our national parks, right? They belong to all of us. And what an opportunity. I'm in awe every time I walk into my office is in the park. And
Dude,
Tanya,
really?
I didn't
Like,
even
dude,
realize.
like,
Yeah,
dude,
in the park.
you're in the park. That's
In the
like, I'm
park.
jealous.
But I think of that word grateful that Tanya used. How can we not be grateful? Look at what we are given as a society in the United States of America, that we have all of these public lands that we're allowed to go visit. And again, I'm in awe every time I walk into. I have lots of parks that are my favorites, but I am still in awe when I walk into one, of Half Dome in Yosemite or the Grand Tetons or wherever I happen to go. Again, I sound like a broken record, but that breathe, listen, and observe.
I think that's going to become my new mantra. Like, honestly, breathe, listen, observe. That is I think all tourist people should embrace that.
Well, and then add the
that is a
grateful.
joke. That's just a joke. That's a personal inside joke. But no, honestly, no. I think that's really important because it is also, as we all travel to national parks, breathe, listen, observe is really important because we're also overrunning our parks. So there's this balance. And that's why I think these external programs that friends groups do, and I think the arts are really integral because they bring people to parks that can't go or maybe shouldn't go on top of everybody else. Like we're getting reservation systems now to go into certain parks. So I think both of your nonprofits, what you do brings this balance that the earth needs. The earth needs it. The people going to the park need it, because why do you want to go to a park that's overrun? That's not you're not going to de-stress. You're not going to calm down if you have to wait in line for 2 hours to get into a park. And I've done it stupidly. And I learned. But even once you're in the park, you can find ways around. But we do need to find this balance. And I think it's through organizations, and I think it's through external programs like what you're doing. Like, hey, maybe you have this kind of cleanup at the park. That's a way to get into the park and see a park from a different perspective and actually be part of the park. If you're helping to clean up a trail or clean up trash or whatever it is, it's a different way where you're actually doing something. And when you actually do something, you start to understand a park better. I think part of why the artist program is so huge for artists is there is a responsibility And without responsibility, you tend to not take responsibility. And I think the artists that go through this program, they all change. They're just about every single artist that goes in, they have their idea of what they want to do. They propose that. And by the time they get there and a few days in, it's already changing. NPAF allows that. The National Parks Arts Foundation understands art. They allow artists to change and morph, but they're taking responsibility of what they can do or maybe change as an artist as well. Artists have come out of there with a whole different art form, which is really cool. But you always see some kind of respect thing change for them coming out.
Yes, I mean, it's incredible, especially once if you're an artist and you're coming, once you get to a place, it's so inspiring that you end up having all of these ideas of other projects that you want to do. And I'm actually right now trying to think of an artist of the, hundreds of artists that we've had in the last, 12 years or whatever it is. And these artists, we catch up with them, we keep talking to them throughout the years. Most of them are friends now, and I'm trying to think of a single artist that isn't still inspired and working with what they were influenced by at Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park.
They're still doing stuff. I mean,
yeah, it's like it doesn't stop. It's like a project, and a lot of in different professions and even artists, they say, okay, I'm going to
comics even. Comic stories. Seriously. Musicians going underwater and listening to hermit crabs and recording them. You've got night sky people. I mean, come on. Like
it doesn't end. The inspiration will probably not end in their lifetime. And the beauty of that is they're able to create things that then inspire other people. And it's all about the park. And, and I think I've mentioned this before, even with environmental things, we've had many artists at different parks bring up in their art, because they arrived, they had a proposal, and then they realized what is happening at the park, like the like the oil at Chaco, and the artists had a big influence in that, and that's not happening now. They're not drilling because our artists, it reached so many people that was able they did have a hand in stopping that.
They wanted to frack the external side, and I think artists have a huge reach, and that's the other thing. That's why I was saying it's such a good balance of what parks can have through organizations, and I just want people to support you guys in what you do. And Tanya, NPAF, what's coming up next in regards? Do you have programs open for people?
Yes,
or
we do. We have our 2024 opportunities. So we time them. We're pretty timely, and we need to look at, the National Park Service schedule. And so we're going to have another Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park opportunity coming up at the beginning of May, and I believe that will be for June of 2024.
Wow, so you have to work in advance, and and that gives people time, right? And what's interesting to me is people get to stay for a month in a house. You allow like their sibling or their spouse to come with them, right? Am I stepping on the wrong
Absolutely.
toes?
We've been able to.
It's rare. This is rare.
Yeah, it's rare, but it's important, and we're very lucky that we're able to invite as many. People have families, and if they have that in their life, then they too are invited, or groups of people. Sometimes artists work in groups, and so they're able to apply as that also. So
and then sometimes you give a stipend. Hello.
Yes. And I think all of our parks have stipends, and we're really, really lucky. We might not be able to do that at some of our new parks, and we have a long list of new parks. So anybody out there who has a suggestion or works within the National Park Service, get a hold of us. We have an incredibly, and I hate to say this, an incredibly long wait list, but we're able to do needs based evaluations and see who, which park and which people, which communities around the park need our services. So it's the parks need to apply to our programs for us to work with them. So
I think it's awesome. You have a step, and you have the art house, and that's important. You have a recording studio in the art house for musicians. I'm just saying. And listen, people need to use that for when they do their podcast with us, so they can sound better than us. It's awesome. It's awesome what you have. Elizabeth, and you guys at the Friends for Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park support NPAF with these programs. What is your main goal for that, supporting them?
Well, we intend, we will support every artist in residence that comes through, and we support them, financially when we can, with in-kind donations as well. And I think that for Tanya's call to the National Park Service, my call is to other friends groups to partner with the National Park and Arts Foundation, because it takes a village to raise an artist. And I think we have an opportunity. In Hawaii, we say the word kuleana, our responsibility. We have a responsibility, and I think that we want to continue supporting this program indefinitely. I mean, it should be something that I would love to see other parks friends groups do the same thing. And again, and we will continue to do that. We have lots of upcoming things happening. Our biggest one right now, of course, is youth programs all start. And we want to expose our youth programs and our youth to the artists in residence. And what a great opportunity when there's an artist in residence for us to bring a youth program in to be able to see that artist. And I hope to see more of that. That is our kuleana, our responsibility. And we're grateful. So,
I love that. I love that you're bringing the youth in, and that is so important, because you never know what that one artist could, change a child's life to become an artist. You never know what that one moment is. And I think that's something we forget about. And you talk about gratitude and gratefulness and breathing and slowing down, right? Thinking that every little moment is a little moment that can change everything. And that's what national parks are about. When we go in, put the phone down.
It absolutely is. And we, an artist that is an artist emeritus, Rick San Nicolas, his work that was inspired by the park. So he has a heritage, a legacy. He's Hawaiian, and he was just accepted into the U.S. Department of Interior Museum collection, which is
huge,
really very important. Yeah. And every time he comes, even if at the time he's not an artist in residence, when he started here, when he first came, he made such great connections with so many community places that even if he's here on, I don't know, vacation, he doesn't really vacation, but he's working all the time. But he teaches youth how to make the feather leis in the traditional style that they were made. So he's teaching youth, and these are also teenagers, for their graduation, to make a traditional legacy heritage based symbol and something. So it's incredible. And he teaches all the time. So even when these artists aren't artists in residence, they're still helping with. So when you brought up youth, I just thought I'd throw that in, because that also doesn't end, and they're volunteering. It's wonderful.
I just love the connection with the artists too, like Andy Jarima and Stan Honda getting together and doing communal projects and stuff. I'm like, dude, what happened? Yay, this is awesome. Like, that's the other thing. It's like an NPAF family has happened. from what
Yes.
I can tell too, you know?
Absolutely.
Tanya and Lisa, can I just put a little plug in there? Rick San Nicolas was the first artist in residence that the Friends of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park supported.
Yes.
So
Really? Oh,
that
wow.
was our inaugural artist for us
Oh, wow.
that we supported. So we obviously have a little bias, a little special place in our heart for Mr. San Nicolas. And it's really amazing to see how far this program has reached. And so, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, National
You
Park and
guys
Arts
rock.
Foundation.
I should say you ladies rock. I keep going like, dude, y'all. You know,
But
I will never stop saying dude.
we could not have had Rick San Nicolas or really any artist in the park without the Friends of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park.
See,
So this wouldn't have happened without you guys for the public. So it keeps going. It doesn't ever seem to end, which is
but
great.
that is amazing. I mean, that is about community connection. It's about integrity to the land, to the art. It's integrity to the people too, right? And that's the important thing. Like I was saying, you don't get anywhere in life on your own. You can, but you're going to be bitter. It's going to be bitter and crabby, but you can't. You have to do it together. And I think that's this beauty. And I think nonprofits, you know, the world has changed over the last 10, 15 years, right? And we've also changed generationally. And nonprofits are so important to support right now. So I've got to give everyone your websites again because, hey, it is fhvnp.org for the Friends of Hawai'i Volcanoes National Park. So fhvnp.org. Did I get that right, Elizabeth? Making sure.
You sure did. Thank you.
You never know.
Mahalo nui.
Oh, listen, I'm coming to you for lessons. When we come to Hawaii, we're just going to go right to Elizabeth's house first, okay? Or I want to meet you at the art house. I don't know. There's coffee, but you know, maybe I don't need the umbrella thing, but you know, we need language lessons. Obviously, you're the person to go to, so I want to go there first.
I'm definitely not the language expert, but I live about a mile from the art house, so
oh, cool. That's cool.
I love getting to see the art house full of artists.
Oh my gosh, I know. And Tanya, did you really put a dance floor in there, or did that happen, or you were doing it, or something? I know you were.
That has not happened yet. We do have a deck, but it is not. It's not good for ballet shoes. So we need to look into how we're going to get the perfect wood flooring for the dance performance artists. I mean, yes, there's places to practice and dance and that kind of thing, and there's a community area too in that neighborhood. But it's not perfect, so we haven't done it
yet.
Exactly.
That house is always changing up and moving on. So everyone, National Parks Arts Foundation.org is a website. We're here every first Friday, and the National Parks Arts Foundation has a new channel through acast.com, so you can check that out as well. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you both, ladies, for all that you do for Hawaii, for artists, for the land, the people. You guys rock. Even though you're ladies, you guys rock.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us so much. Thank you, Lisa.